lesson, we're going to have a look at another topic, another short one. It's about multinational companies. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the impact of multinationals on host countries. We're going to have a look at some positive factors, some negative factors, and also mainly the definition. What are multinationals? Let's have a look. So if you look at these different brands, Ford, Huawei, Nestle, Bosch, Adidas, what do all of these businesses have in common? Yes, they're all multinationals. So how do we define a multinational? It's a company that has its headquarters in one country, but also has operations in other countries. Okay, so it has, let's say, branches, actual offices in other countries. Be careful because exporting goods to other countries and other companies is not considered a multinational company. So I can, if I'm operating in one country and I'm exporting my goods to other countries, so yes, my goods are present in other countries, but I am not present. I, as a company, don't have branches or offices there, then I wouldn't be considered a multinational. Multinational actually has to have headquarters in one and then store operations in other countries. Why do companies even become multinationals? It is basically for the different benefits, for the different advantages that it brings to them. If I have a headquarter in one country, but I also have branches in the places where I'm marketing my products, I'm in a way closer to my main markets. This can bring the advantage of having lower transport costs. It might have the advantage of bringing me better information about my consumers because I'm already there. I'm in the market. I'm observing the consumer behavior. I am present. I'm gaining information. As for the transport costs, if I'm transporting from a factory that is inside the country, then obviously it's going to be much cheaper than if I'm transporting my goods all over the world. It can also mean often that you will gain lower costs of production. Why? Why do, for example, companies build factories in China? Well, lower developed countries or developing countries often have lower labor rates. What does labor rates mean? If I would say it in normal human words, it would mean lower salaries. Basically, in those countries, it is maybe more common to pay lower salaries. The people have lower standard of living. There is a height of competition, maybe of employees. There's higher unemployment. So basically, employees are all competing, or the workers are competing for the job, and therefore you might be able to pay them lower wages. For this reason, companies are often moving to these less developed countries and actually operating there to get advantage of these lower salaries. This is a strategy called offshoring. That I'm actually moving a part of my production process to a different country in order to benefit from, for example, these lower costs. The lower costs might not happen just because of lower wages, but also you might have cheaper rent for the land, for the factories, for the buildings, and so on. Often governments also give some extra grants, some extra incentives, maybe in the form of tax incentives, in order to, let's say, encourage businesses to even move there. Why do a lot of multinationals move to Ireland? They have some tax incentives, right? This is why there you can find Facebook headquarters, there are Google headquarters. Big companies are operating now from Ireland because they gave them some incentive why they should do so. Okay, you can also, as a multinational, being present in your markets can mean that you will have either lower or even no import duties. or any restrictions. In our last lesson, we talked about what are duties, what are tariffs, what are quotas. Those are some restrictions on imports that exist when you're importing goods into your country. You might be protecting your own economics, and therefore you would be imposing import duties on some of those products. And if your company is already operating in that particular market, in that particular country, then there won't be any import duties on those products. So it makes sense for multinationals. You can also get access to local natural resources. So depending on what industry the company is operating in, this might also pose a big advantage and an incentive of why a company wants to become a multinational. So multinational, here's another definition. It's a business organization that has its headquarters in one country, but with operating branches, factories, and assembly plants in other countries. So here you can see it's already more specific. It's talking about these, how you can operate in other countries through branches, factories, and assembly plants. So here are some fun facts about multinationals. Let's have a look at each statement, and try to decide whether this statement is true or false. Let's have a look at the first one. About 500,000 companies can be considered multinationals around the world. What do you think? What do you think is the number of multinationals around the world? Is it going to be this high, lower, higher? Try to take a guess. It's false. It's actually much lower. So there are only about 82,000 businesses which are considered multinationals. Okay, the second one. The OECD monitors multinationals for tax reasons. Is that true? I think that OECD stands for Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. Does it monitor multinationals? Yes or no? And it's true. It does monitor MNCs for tax reasons. The largest multinational in 2021 was Walmart. What do you think? It's true. It was the largest multinational. Might be a good idea to perhaps pick Walmart as your business for your internal assessment. Here you have an inspiration. Next one. China has the highest number of top 100 multinationals. So if I look at the top 100 multinationals, is it true that China has the highest number of those? What do you think? It's actually false. It's the United States of America that has the highest number, with nearly 90 of the top 100. So if we look at the top 100 multinationals, 90 of them are going to be coming from the USA. Okay, and the last one, the largest 100 of these companies account for 70% of international trade. So basically here we need to think about how much, in terms of percentage, do the multinationals account for in international trade? Is it going to be a higher number, a lower number, perhaps why? Think about it. And the answer is, it's actually false. So the top 100 multinationals account for actually only 40% of international trade. Wonder why that might be. Maybe because they already have the branches, maybe they already have their branches or plants inside their main markets, and therefore it wouldn't be considered international trade anymore. Makes sense if you think about it. All right, so it's not all beautiful, it's not all nice and shiny. It obviously has some problems. So multinationals are going to be facing some potential problems. What could those be? So first, it's going to be some internal problems. If you have branches all over the place, and there's a lot of distance between you, you are limited in the way how you can communicate. So there might be a limitation in the time difference, a limitation in the media that you're going to use. We're going to talk about communication as one big topic in HR, but even the fact that you have to communicate only online, and not face to face, will create some communication problems. So a lot of the times the communication with the headquarters is the source of some drawbacks, of some limitations, of some problems. So definitely that is something that needs to be taken into consideration. Second, very, very important problem that a lot of multinationals face is language, culture, differences in legal factors. So basically, when we were talking about the steeple analysis, the external environment and what roles it plays for the business, this is exactly what multinationals need to deal with, because they're going to be having a look at the steeple analysis of all the different markets where the multinational operates or where it has its branches, and it will need to somehow deal with that. So if you're operating, let's say, in 3 countries, okay, yes, it might be still manageable, but you still need to be aware of the differences. Maybe change or adapt your communication, the way how you're handling things to these differences. However, if think about, like, if multinationals have branches all over the world, then I'm sure they will have just like one department focusing on managing these differences. Communication with local government. Okay, again, the government is part of the steeple analysis factors. You still need to communicate with them. You still need to create some kind of relationship. Suddenly, if you're operating a lot of markets, you have much more stakeholders that you need to communicate with. Okay, remember the unit about stakeholders. Stakeholders, there can be internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. So again, you will have just the quantity of the stakeholders will be much higher, much harder to manage. A lot of the times, when you're operating in developing countries where the local employees probably don't have such high education as what you were used to, maybe they have low skill levels, this is going to pose a problem. It might lead to lower quality of your product, or it might just lead to higher costs of training because you'll need to improve their skill levels. So this might bring some costs, some problems that the multinationals didn't count with. And so definitely, you need to be aware of that. And then obviously, the coordination of all the plans is obviously challenging. And the key concept that can be linked to this whole idea of multinationals operating in different markets, it can be creativity, right? It can be also obviously the other concept, but creativity is the process of creating new ideas and considering existing ideas from a new perspective. Like, think about how businesses use creativity when they're moving to a new country. Okay, they need to be creative in thinking about their strengths and weaknesses. So basically, again, something that we've learned. Using their SWOT analysis, combining, the information that they have from their steeple analysis, maybe coming up using their creativity to come up with some great new product, some great new service or good that is going to satisfy the needs and wants of the customers in perhaps that new market. Yeah, because new places obviously do not have the same wants and needs. If you're operating in that new country, you're going to be more observant of your customers, you might actually come up with a new perspective, with a new product, and so on. Can you think of two examples where businesses change their products or services when moving to a new country? Maybe it could be business that you're considering to choose, like for your internal assessment, or maybe if you haven't chosen one for your internal assessment, maybe this is how you choose. You kind of think of maybe a business that hasn't moved to a new country, maybe they created a new product, and this could be the topic for your internal assessment. So here's some inspiration. And an example of a business that was creative and that it did expand, that did become a multinational company. And also, it can be an inspiration for a business that perhaps you could pick for an internal assessment. Try to do some more research on Jollibee. To introduce it, it was founded in 1975 in the Philippines, and Tony Tan Kak Tiong, with the help of his family, started selling ice cream in the streets of Manila. 3 years after starting, the family saw the opportunity of hot meals. They converted the ice cream parlors into the Jollibee many people know today. Okay, so again, he was using creativity. He saw some opportunity, he used it, he grabbed it, he used it. Tawny always saw the huge potential for his business and dreamed big. He put faith in hard work, passion, and focus to turn his then small business into one of the biggest companies in the Philippines, Asia, and now the world. Today, that dream has helped create over 5,800 stores in 34 countries. Their mission is to bring the joy of eating to everyone. They aim and continue to work to become one of the top 5 restaurant companies in the world. Okay, so I don't know, we don't have Jollibee as far as I'm concerned in the Czech Republic. Try to maybe research like what are the 34 countries? Do they have some kind of strategy? Do they face some of the problems that we've talked about that multinationals face? Might be a good way to research and also to connect with this topic. And now, place for thought. You could have a discussion if you're watching with your friend, with your classmate. Then you can split the task, and each one of you can think of one will think about the advantages, one will think about the drawbacks. If you're not in a pair, then you can think about the advantages to the host country of having multinationals operate there. And then once you're done, also think about the drawbacks to host nations. So now, before we were like talking about the advantages to the multinationals. So we know that multinationals, benefit from cheaper workforce, from local resources, they benefit um, from having grants, maybe from the government. But now let's focus on the advantages for the host country. So why is it beneficial for some country to have a multinational operate there? And then the second part of the task, what would be the drawbacks for the country of the multinationals operating there? Okay, so let's have some time for that. Uh, mm, you can pause the video, you can think about this, and then we're going to move on. Okay, so what do you think? Are there more advantages than disadvantages? Are some businesses or industries maybe better to have in a host country? This could be some considerations that you could have thought about. Now let's have a look what those advantages could be. So effects on the host country. Advantages can be economic growth and employment. It can be improved knowledge for the locals, greater choice of products for the citizens. This can lead also to building new infrastructure. Local firms can grow too. They can be working as the suppliers, supplying services and components to the multinational companies. You will get tax revenues from the multinationals, which would increase the GDP. And obviously, the government could then reinvest the revenues from the taxes into, improving the living standard of all the locals. Now, before I move on to the disadvantages, I also wanted to show like an example. This is taken from the website gapminder.org. It's actually a great website. Check it out. It is comparing or showing real pictures of real families from countries all around the world, and it has a nice way how to filter by topic and also by income. So as you can see now, I was actually looking for something for roofs. So the topic here is roofs or buildings, how you basically cover your shelters. And you can always see the country. So here we have a roof from Burkina Faso. The income of the family there is $29 per month. Okay. Compared to, let's say, France here, very nice roof, $14,753 per month. Okay, then you have some Haiti roof. I mean, still looks well, not not that stable. I mean, probably the Burkina Faso like looks better for me at least, but maybe that's just because I don't live there. But this one looks more stable. This one then, on the other hand, is probably going to be more waterproof. Indonesia roof here, $399 per month. You can just compare the standards, and it can be a good illustration of the economic growth that or how the economic growth can affect the locals, and what to have basically also some pictures representing what we mean by economic growth. All right, effects on the host country. Ignore the pictures for now. I'm gonna explain what point I wanted to make later on. But disadvantage on the host country, what could you have mentioned? A lot of the times, the multinational, I mean, obviously is going to take most of the profits back to the home country, okay? Back to the shareholders. If the shareholders are mostly located in the home country, then they're going to be benefiting from the profits, which obviously is not such a big advantage for the host country. A lot of the times it can lead to exploitation of the local workforce. So yes, we talked about the fact that the workforce in less developed countries don't have such rights. Maybe they don't have so much choice. They have to work long hours. They get low pay, no benefits. And if a multinational is going to benefit from that, I mean, we can consider it as exploitation. Is it ethical to exploit the local workforce? Why should the local workforce get less for the same work that they're doing as some workforce in the home country? So definitely big disadvantage there for the host country. Employment of specialized jobs isn't increased because workers are brought in. What we mean by this is that a lot of the times the multinational is actually bringing specialists, managers, from their home country. There'll be expats. They'll be living there for a few years. They're going to be doing all the specialized jobs, the highly paid jobs, and then the local workers are only going to be used for the low paid jobs. Pollution and environmental damage. Definitely, this can happen, especially if the multinational company is operating in an industry where you work a lot with land, where you're producing in the manufacturing, the secondary industry, also in the primary. This might lead to environmental damage in the form of erosion or like draining the land basically of its minerals and so on. Multinationals will definitely pose a competition. They will act as competition for local companies, local businesses. So this can mean that it's actually going to damage the economy if you don't handle it well. And the last one, and now maybe this makes sense why I posted these pictures. Uh, Multinationals are often, since as we saw before, big majority of those multinationals actually come from the US. It says, or one of the disadvantages is that they're imposing Western culture on the less developed countries or developing countries. And this can, possibly reduce the local culture identity. If I look at the pictures now, like, what do we see? The boy in Haiti is holding a car with penguins. I don't know, probably from the movie Madagascar. Okay, um, I don't know if is that does that should we be concerned? Is it somehow damaging the local cultural identity? Maybe yes. Maybe otherwise he would have a different hero, a different favorite toy in his hand. Brazil, here a girl with Elsa and Anna from the movie Frozen. Here's Toy Story again, Brazil. And Serbia, it doesn't have pictures of any movies or any cartoons, but then what is it? It has English language on the notebook. I mean, this is part of globalization, the process of globalization. We're getting rid of the barriers. We're becoming one big market. The world is one big market, also thanks to internet. Yes, it's great. On one hand, almost everybody speaks English, but on the other hand, it might be considered also as a disadvantage. Okay, and that is basically the end of the presentation. Definitely have a look at the website Gapminder. It is super interesting, and see you on Tuesday. Bye.